So the third month of the year, which corresponds to the tropical sign of Pisces, but the constellation of Aquarius is founded on a Larimar foundation. And for those of you who might not be aware, this all came to me as like a download in early 2012. I was really wondering, like, what's going on? If we as humanity are ever destined for anything greater than the same old what is, 9 to 5 kind of thing, what are we doing following the Gregorian calendar? I realized like all those dates, they're not even aligned. Like the months start on the first of the month, but the constellations and the tropical zodiac starts on the 20th, and the solstices don't even align. Like the whole thing is off. Like New Year's is totally arbitrary. So I looked at the sky and it just came to me. I'm like, dude, there's 12 constellations. The sun is in each of those for about a month's time. Duh. And so I just spent some time really downloading information from source, and what came was really shocking because each of the months, of course, they correspond to a constellation. They correspond to a segment of the pulse of the sine wave, but they also have correspondences in not only stones and medicine and plants, and all these things are linked together as a fractal network. But each of the months starts off on a cornerstone, and that cornerstone for this month is associated with the anointing oil. Now it's very funny because I started out very hardcore Christian background. I was raised as a churchgoer. I was reading the Bible when I was 3 years old, no lie. But of course, when I started to learn more about our spiritual nature, I realized just how limiting the institution of Christendom was. And so I started looking as earnest as I could to source itself, not going through institutions. And I realized what shocked me was that I came around full circle, learning truth everywhere, and realizing that the Bible itself was talking about manifesting and who we are as children, sons of the Elohim. And the foundation, the beginning date, the cornerstone of this month actually ties a lot of that together right now. So I'm going to explain that to you. The name of the month that was codified in the oracle I received is Kumbha, after the Indian Sanskrit term, which actually means water pot, which corresponds to Aquarius. Now, when you're looking at the stars in the sky, the sun right now is in Aquarius, but the nature of the pulse is what has been traditionally associated with the tropical sign of Pisces. And this is just before it reaches the vernal equinox and crosses over that equilibrium point. As it's rising, it's in a rising phase, but it still hasn't crossed that equilibrium point. So that's getting into like periods and science and all that stuff. I don't want to really cover that in this video, because in this video, I'm going to be talking about the anointing oil. Now, this ritual, of course, was not just in Israel. It was common throughout the ancient Near East, in Mesopotamia, and it spread, where we have accounts not only from ancient Israel in the Bible, but throughout Mesopotamia. The Babylonian kings did it. It's literally how the king became worthy of standing in that office. And the Israelite kings say this too. Every single king and prophet that assumed that role in office had to go through this ritual in order to bring that Spirit of God into them. And we have accounts from recipes from ancient Near East which tell us what was going into this oil. And it's very interesting because the very first king of ancient Israel, Saul, who is anointed with this oil, he goes through a whole complete transformation. And the prophet literally says to him, once I put this oil on you, you're going to feel the Spirit of Yahweh come upon you and you'll be transformed into a different person. A lot of people, they haven't even heard this story from but they don't even know these details. But this is really what was going on. This is how all the kings of Israel actually held their claim to that office. It's because they literally were, at the ceremony, adopted by the gods. And it was in that moment that they literally became his son. And it's very interesting because it is all really fulfilled by Jesus, because he was either anointed with this oil or he had no business calling himself the Christ, had no business claiming himself as the Messiah, because the very term Messiah is the one who has been anointed with this oil. That's what the word Christ means, which is a Greek translation of the Hebrew word Mashiach, which means the anointed one. So it's very interesting that my whole journey learning this stuff has brought me full circle into a fuller understanding which the church was never able to give me, but that I received from Source itself. And this is what created the craze amongst the early Gnostic Christians. And that's why they had to create a canon and homogenize it, create the Catholic Church in order to get rid of any so-called heresies, because it was in the heresies that the true power and the true connect. They were literally like going on astral journeys en masse every time they held service. It was intense, and that's what the empire feared the most. And even quoting from some of these Gnostic texts, like the Gospel of Philip, it says, "It is through water and fire that the whole place is purified. There is water in water. There is fire in chrism." And of course, the water is talking about the rite of water baptism, which was central to the Catholic Church that came out of Constantine's Nicene Council. But while they couldn't deny the importance of the rite of the anointing, they didn't make it an integral part of the church liturgy, and it's been since lost to mainstream Christianity. And if you actually go back, the whole process of creating this anointing oil, like the Bible actually gives a recipe for this, and there's been some debate, but just looking at the recipe, we can see here, straight from the Hebrew text, describes it as such, containing liquid myrrh, or in Hebrew, mordrur, cinnamon or cinnamon, cassia or kida, and a very peculiar spice, which is translatable as fragrant cane, but in Hebrew is actually the term cannabosum. I'm not going to say any more on that. There's been a lot of debate on the nature of what that plant is and what the whole nature is. But all of this is infused into olive oil. And once this oil is employed, we can see a literal transformation in the character of the people. And here I am paraphrasing my own direct translation of the original language. "And Shmuel took a bottle of the oil, and he poured it upon his head, and he kissed him, and he said, 'Is it not that Yahweh has anointed you over his property to be a leader? And it will be as you come there to the city, you will meet a group of prophets descending from the heights, and before them bagpipe and tambourine and pipe and lyre, and they shall be prophesying. And the breath of Yahweh will rush upon you, and you will prophesy with them, and you will be overturned to be another man. And it will be that these will come to you. Do to you what befalls your hand, for the Elohim are with you.' And it was that when he turned his back to go from Shmuel, and Elohim overturned to him another heart. And all these signs came in that day. And it was, all that knew him beforehand saw him, and lo, with the prophets he prophesied. And the people said every man unto his friend, What is this that is to the son of Kish? Is Shaul also among the prophets?" And the Hebrew term that's translated prophet here actually is nabi, which actually means to bubble forth or boil over, which actually means when you're under the influence of this oracular spirit, the words just come up, and sometimes they're in different languages, sometimes they're songs. That's what a lot of us call light language. It just comes through, and a lot of times we don't understand it, but it has an energetic signature. And it's very interesting because these guys would be transcribing this, they would be writing it, and it would come out in verse, and it was rhythm. Like they would literally freestyle this stuff, and that's what a lot of the prophecies in the Bible are. And we've lost touch with this tradition, but it's a very powerful way that Logos tells us what we need to do in situations that maybe our ego or logic gets in the way, tries to reason out solutions, but doesn't know the bigger picture. Source knows the bigger picture. And of course, while this cornerstone is not based on oracular utterance, there are other cornerstones that we'll discuss further on in the year about that. This one is totally about just the oil. And of course, when you do this, you just clean yourself, make sure you have a good shower, and then you just rub your whole body down with the oil. The early Gnostics would do specifically the forehead, the lips, and the chest, which symbolize, of course, the mind, the speech, and the heart. And they would do this in what they call the bridal chamber, when they would literally become one with the God force, right? The marriage supper of the Lamb. Like, this was intense stuff, really intense stuff. So a lot of these rituals have been hidden by the very institutions that are supposed to be, keeping them and maintaining that kind of integrity, but there's no integrity there. So we got to go directly to source and realize that we are actually the sons of Elohim, the most powerful beings in this world right now. And we step into that potential, that power, and that's it. That's it. Then we're ushering in the Messianic age. And that's what I mean by Messianic. We are anointed. We have received the anointing oil. And it is in that ritual, that ceremony, that we are actually adopted. Like how David, the king that wrote all those Psalms, if he was anointed, and a lot of his songs are actually sung during the ritual of anointing. And it describes what's going on. Because it's following this whole procedure. Yahweh said to me, "My son are you. I, this day, have begotten you." So yeah, once we step into this potential, there's literally nothing that can hold us back. And I'm going to go out with the oracle that I received in early 2012 that describes this day, this cornerstone, February 15th, or the 1st of Kumbha, as I call it in my calendar. The oracle says, "The third constellation of Arostar is founded upon CRISMDAY, the Larimar Foundation. Guarded by the bearer of nectar, Surya travels through this constellation for 33 days, with every fourth year having an extra day for a total of 34 days. On CRISMDAY, the first day of Kumbha, bear your naked body to be anointed with the nectar of Kumbha. Rejoice in the blossoming of your soul and wed the Creator within." And I received an oracle in which it's described the recipe to create my own anointing oil, which was called the Nectar of Kumbha in the oracle. But I'll be making a video on that in the future, and we'll be discussing that. But right now, you can use any olive-based oil. It doesn't matter. The point is just to step into your full potential and to seek source, because once that intent is set, no matter where you are, source will rise you to the vibration that you want to be at. So just aim at raising your vibration. Just aim at that. No matter where it takes you, just hold that vision and you'll get there. So I'll see you in the next video. I want you to have an amazing day. Have an amazing year, guys. We're doing this. We're creating the world that we know we're deserving of. So, Agape, Salaam, Namaste, Hotep, Shalom.